Hi everyone, Luke here from Weekend Tour Pros. Now I don't know about you, but I'm always looking for opportunities to add a couple more yards to my golf game, particularly with the driver off the tee. Now whenever I research the topic online, I get three typical answers that come up. Get faster, get stronger, get custom fit for a brand new driver. But what if I told you that there was a fourth answer to that question that could hopefully save you a lot of money and be a lot less time consuming for you and still give you some of the same results? Simply put, what happens if we take the existing driver in your golf bag and make sure we've got it set up to maximize the distance potential that you can get out of it? Now what we're going to do in this video today is put that experiment to the test and see if I can gain 5 or 6 yards with my driver by just making sure I've got the loft dialed in to the correct setting. So what we're going to do in a second is head down to the TrackMan studio, take my driver, the Ping G430, and set it up in 3 different loft settings: 9 degrees, 10.5 degrees and 12 degrees. And I'm going to hit a batch of shots with each of those setups, give you all of the TrackMan data, talk you through my feelings side by side. Then at the end, we'll do a head-to-head comparing the 3 data sets to work out how much of a difference there is between the longest setup and the shortest setup and all of the impacts it has on ball flights and spins as well. Now, if you're someone who bought your driver off the shelf without having a custom fitting, or potentially you've had a custom fitting but a long while ago and maybe you or your swing has changed since then I think this video could be a really good one for you to watch, and hopefully we might be able to add a couple of yards to your golf game without too much of a change. Right, let's get down to the studio, let's start the test. So what I'm going to show you then is 3 different loft options on the driver. I am using a 10.5 degree head, so we'll be turning it down to 9 degree at one extreme. We'll then show you at 10.5, we'll then show it at 12, and we'll show you what the numbers do differently. But again, the one thing I would note is there would be some slightly different results if you were using a 9 degree head to start with, because it does manipulate the face ever so slightly when you take a 10.5 degree and dial it up or dial it down, etc. But I think it's a really good test to demonstrate the difference and how you may or may not have this right in your golf game. So straight out of the gate there, that was actually quite a good hit with the 9 degree, and my ball speed 132.4, my carry 209, my total 228.5, path and face were just a fraction close, spinning at 2996. That's one of the numbers I want you to keep an eye on, is the spin, the launch at 13.7, the peak height of 80, but also we'll just make sure we keep an eye on my other delivery numbers to make sure the shots are comparable. But first one out of the gate with the 9 degrees, pleased with that, hit slightly up on it, delivered some good speeds, hit some good distance. There's another one there, good, what felt like a good hit in terms of strike. Speed of 135.3 with the ball speed, carrying at 211, total 233.4. I'm hoping that's definitely from the inside. So there we go, we've got one there where I've hit it probably as good as I can actually at the moment in terms of kind of strike on the day. Ball speed 134 mile an hour, carrying at 213.2, total at 233. That's the fastest one yet, 137.2. Carrying at 217, rolling out to just under 240, 239.6. And that's probably a nice one to finish on with the 9 degrees because it shows you kind of the good and the bad of it. Didn't catch the strike as well, only 131.6 mile an hour ball speed. Carry numbers dropped down by a couple of yards to 208.9. Because of that lower flight, it still rolled out to 235. Absolutely feels like a win. But the interesting thing there is the spin rate of 2264 has fell off a cliff, and that just feels like the ball's going to fall out of the air quite quickly to me. And that's probably my nervousness with a loft such as that. So let's move up to the 10.5 degree and see how that changes the dynamics ever so slightly. Right, so we've adjusted it to now the standard loft of the club, which is a 10.5 degree. Now straight away, what we've seen there, first one out the gate, it's a good ball speed, so I've struck it okay, but unfortunately I've just closed it down a little bit with a slightly shut face. But we've seen that the mist probably isn't as far right as it was with the 9 degree when it went left. We've seen the spin rate has stayed still around that 2.9 on this strike, the carry number at 208.8, and then the total at 232 are probably both a couple of yards down, but it feels like it probably has stayed on the planet. Not as good a strike, but I think the path and the direction are good. And what we've seen as a result of that is we've got it out with a good distance this time. We're now starting to see distances that compare to the 9 degree in terms of carry number, but obviously it's not rolling out as far. Again, not a great strike, but 206.6 of carry. It's also not gone off the planet left. Yes, we're near that fairway bunker, but we're not massively in the rough, despite the fact that it therefore went left. And that was because the spin then jumped up to help us there. It still gave us a 220-yard drive because the spin jumping up just kept the ball in the air, helped keep it a little bit straighter. And effectively we are, what's that, 57 feet. So what, just under 29 yards left of center. 136.9 of ball speed, definitely again one of my better ones. 212.8 of carry, 233.5 of total. And then you go to that one here, which is probably where everything with a 10.5 degree falls perfectly into place. And you've got 135 of ball speed, carrying at 218, totaling over 240 at 241.6. Another one that's not that great there, but still stayed on the planet. 25 yards left of where we're aiming, which I'm probably aiming to be 5 yards left to begin with, because I'm hoping to start it left and, if anything, learn to turn it back. And that one there is probably a really nice one to finish on, because I've actually gone the other way there of smothering it down the right hand side. Again, normally with a hook it can really roll out too far, but again probably just rolled into that first cut on this sort of 50-yard wide fairway. But it carried at 218.7, total 240. Right, so let's see what happens with the 12 degrees. I guess my gut instinct is spin's going to go up higher. We're going to probably see distance come down a little bit, but it'll be interesting again to see if we do increase that accuracy as a result of that. So there's the first good one with the 12 degrees, where we've been able to deliver it with a good set of strike and flight. Ball speed is down at 130.6. Carry at 210 is in the same ballpark as what we've seen on good hits. The total's down because of that extra sort of launch and height. But we've seen again, spin rate even there has stayed quite consistent, which I think is probably saying more about my strike and how good this driver is than anything else. But let's try and hit a few more. The carry of 208.5, very, very similar to what we were seeing even with the 9 degree loft. Because of that launch though, and that height, it's just rolling out and not as much. Really interesting that everything with the 12 degree, I don't know if it's to do with the fact it manipulates the angle slightly of the face and things like that when you are closing and opening these drivers, but we're obviously seeing that decrease in distance. We're seeing spin jump up, we're seeing distance drop down, and I think what this shows you is there is just a fine balance here. That one there at 215.7 with a slightly better strike on it, where the two things matched up in terms of path and face. They were still closed, but a little bit more matched up. Did give us 215.7 and 240.8, which is one of the longest hits. And the key thing there to get into your head is, just because you dial your driver up doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hit it less distance. In some cases, for some of us, we'll be hitting it a little bit more. And that's a really, really nice one to finish on with the 12 degree driver. It's probably the one that I've delivered the best out of everything. Right, so we've done the 9 degree, the 10.5 degree, the 12 degree. I've talked through a few shots as I go. The key thing now is to go and look at all the data side by side. So let's go home and let's do that now and see what concluding thoughts it gives us. Right, let's deep dive into those data sets. What you can see on screen here is the data sets from the 9 degrees at the bottom, the 10.5 in the middle, and the 12 degrees at the top. Now, I always say whenever I'm doing these tests that as an 11 handicap golfer and being a human, I am the biggest variable in this test. But the one thing I just want to show you here is that the club head speed, the ball speeds, and the smash factors with all three of these tests were very, very similar. And therefore, I do think they give a really good indication of the rest of the results you're about to see. Now, it's absolutely no surprise to see that as we increase the driver loft, the launch angle, the peak height and the land angle all did go up as that loft increased. That launch angle went from 13.9 up to 15.8. The peak height of the driver shots went from 79 feet to 94 feet. And that land angle, which influences how much rollout potential we've got, went from 36.8 degrees to 41.5 degrees. It's also no surprise to see that as the loft went up, so did the amount of spin that we generated, from 2860 on average with the 9 degree, up to 2995, and then up to 3154 with the 12 degree loft. So somewhere in the region of about 1 to 200 revs of extra spin as we cranked up the driver through the different settings. Now the most important question is, what did that all do to distance? Well, what you can see here, if we just focus in on the total, is that the longest setup for me in this experiment was the 10.5 degree at 232.1 yards of total distance, versus the shortest, which was the 12 degree at 226 yards. So in the space of sort of 30 to 40 minutes of just doing this experiment and changing the driver loft, everything else being the same that we were doing, in the club's the same, the ball's the same, all in the same session, I've been able to gain 6.1 yards between my worst setup and my best setup. So if you've got an inefficient setup of your driver at the moment and you do get it optimal, there's some potential really quick and easy gains to be had. It's really hard to find 6 yards anywhere else in your golf bag by doing some speed training or increasing the quality of your technique. This could be something without changing any of that and just getting yourself on a TrackMan or getting yourself in with an instructor or fitter just to optimize that club that you've already got in your bag. Always like to show you the dispersion circles just so you can see that. I did hit a few more shots with the 10.5 degrees. There was no deliberate reason for that. I just noticed it when I got home. There's a few more shots in the data set, and as a result the dispersion circle was a little bit bigger. But when I looked at the left to right, I think it was somewhere in the region of, like, the furthest left was about 29 yards left and the furthest right was about 25, 26 yards right. So actually I think in most cases they are going to find the fairway or the first cut on most golf courses and shouldn't get me in too much trouble. If we just move over to the dispersion circle from carry to total, you can see it's also a very similar picture. And that leads me nicely into my concluding thoughts. So hopefully over the last 10 minutes, I've been able to demonstrate to you the positive impact and benefits that you can get from making sure that you've got an optimal driver setup and maximizing the distance potential for you and your golf swing. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should end up with a 10.5 degree setup in their driver head, quite the opposite. What I am saying is that every single golfer watching this video has got a different swing speed and different delivery characteristics. But what I am saying is that every single golfer has got an optimal setup for them, and I definitely think it's worth booking yourself into a TrackMan bay for an hour or spending 30 minutes with a PGA professional to dial in your driver and make sure you are maximizing the distance potential out on the golf course. Now, if you're someone who's thinking of getting a new driver, I definitely would recommend doing this before you go and do it. You might just save yourself a little bit of money as well. Now, if you are someone that's done this experiment or you've watched this video and you've gone and done it, I'd love to hear your results down in the comments below and see if you've been able to get a few more yards by optimizing that driver. If you like the video, please do smash that thumbs up button. And if you're not yet following Weekend Tour Pros, go on, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a follower of the channel. We're building a great little movement. We've got some brilliant people in the comments section. It's a little bit of a community here. I'd love to have you following the channel as well. All that's left to say is go and get that extra 5 or 10 yards. Have a great day. Goodbye.